Which teams headed for the playoffs are pretenders in 2025? And what about the 2026 NFL Draft? Should we be gearing up for trade mania on today's NFL Six Pack?
This is Locked On's NFL Six Pack. 6 bold takes from 2 guys who just flat out know football. NFL experts Matt Williamson and Brian Peacock bring pure NFL talk. Great takes, no fluff, just honest football talk. Crack one open. It's NFL Six Pack on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the NFL Six Pack Mailbag Edition. Thanks to all the listeners out there that are making us their first listen of the day here. Those questions coming into Matt at Williamson NFL, to myself at BD Peacock on Twitter. So appreciate everybody out there who is tuning in, getting questions into our mailbags, and part of making us the #1 sports podcast network. I love our everydayers, so appreciate you. Today's episode of NFL Six Pack is brought to you by Prize Picks, as is every Thursday episode. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. We teased this one yesterday, Matt, and a question from Lewis about the 2026 NFL Draft. And if you didn't listen to yesterday's show, it was really fun. We're looking at a lot of young quarterbacks and talking about Tua being benched and what those quarterback plans might be for teams in 2026. And it's shaping up not to be the greatest quarterback draft. And that's right where Lewis comes in with this question. He said, should we be gearing up for a ton of trades at the top of the 2026 NFL Draft because of a few quarterbacks that are worthy, but a lot of teams with the need, and potentially a draft that's not very top heavy at other positions? What do you think? I don't dislike that notion.
Right.
And we've talked a lot about this off the air as well. Could we even see one of those big trade ups that a team comes 10 plus picks and jumps all of those quarterback needy teams because they don't envision themselves as a team that is going to be able to find a quarterback another way, including future drafts?
So I used to work at ESPN, and I pay attention to Mel and Todd when they would do their mocks and whatnot, and tune into some of their podcasts. And I know McShay a little bit and all those guys. And it used to be a rule, when we do these mocks, no trades. And some of these sites you go to even now in November, December, no trades. Well, I mean, they often do. This year, every one of the sites that I've looked at a mock has like 3 trades at the top. Like whoever the editors are being like, no, you don't have to stick and pick because the mock's going to stink because the Giants will have the first pick or the Titans, and you're going to have to take some tackle that should go 12th overall, and then nobody cares. So I do think the writing's on the wall for a lot of early movement. The Jets could move. I mean, between bad teams swapping picks. But I think what's an interesting angle is the one you mentioned is, could a mediocre team, I mean, not a great team, I mean, the Super Bowl champs won't move up, but could a mediocre team really push their chips in and go up?
Wow, Matt, first of all, we got to stop the presses here.
Uh-oh.
Matt Williamson just called the Steelers mediocre, if I'm not mistaken.
That was the next thing out of my mouth was, I think the most likely team is Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I mean, of the ones that could be picking 15 or later, you know what I mean? Right. Something like that, a potential even playoff team. Could
this be the year? The fascinating thing for me is, and look, it may not be that fun at the top if, let's say, the Raiders get the #1 pick.
They'll
just draft a quarterback.
Sure.
And so,
but if it's Tennessee or the Giants or,
the draft class that comes to mind is the Jared Goff, Carson Wentz draft, where both #1 and #2 picks ended up being traded. And at this point, if people remember, this happens all the time. This happened with Alex Smith in 2005. It happened with Patrick Mahomes in 2017. It happened with Jared Goff in 2016, 2015 draft with Goff and Wentz. It happens a lot where the quarterbacks get pushed up the boards. Jared Goff was a second-round pick in December, right?
This time of Jared
Alex
Goff.
Smith was a second-round pick. Aaron Rodgers, people didn't really know about him. And then they're like, oh, maybe he's #1. It's like, actually, he ends up going 24. Patrick Mahomes, nobody knew what to do with. He was a very late riser. And even when he ended up with the 10th pick, people are like, wow, that is high, because a lot of teams didn't know what to do with Patrick Mahomes.
Wentz, Mayfield.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And Wentz was playing at North Dakota State. Nobody even seen Wentz play in December of 2015 or whatever it was. So that's something to remember here. But it's shaping up to be a class where there's one, maybe two maximum players that you could even envision being drafted in the top 5 at the quarterback position. But those guys might potentially rise to the point where clearly they're going to end up 1 and 2. And I don't think the class is that strong at positions outside the quarterback either in the top 5 or 10 that a team is going to say, well, I'm going to sit here at 3, let the other 2 teams draft a quarterback and draft a stud defensive end, a stud offensive tackle, a stud wide receiver. There's no Jamar Chases in this class, but it's a deep class, it looks like, in the first round. So all of this is to say, if you're the Tennessee Titans and you have the number 1 pick in the draft, you could go down to 5, but what if you could get more and go to 15 and draft from a similar pool of player talent?
Yeah, I was going to say some similar stuff. Like, I can't imagine a really good team moving up for Julio Jones. You know, I mean, a non-quarterback. I don't think that player exists in this draft.
Yes.
You know, like, we're a playoff team. The Bills go get Julio Jones. You know, like, that sounds awesome, but Julio Jones is in this draft. You know,
and who knows? Maybe one of these prospects that we start hearing about, scouts love him, and he goes to the combine and blows up, and so
that will change. Senior Bowl, and right.
There might
some guys will emerge.
Players that you fall in love with, and it tends to happen in the draft process. Oh, this is a crappy draft, and you start to fall in love with all these guys during the spring.
One of these edge rushers runs a 4.35 or something crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But that could, right. And I hate this conversation, but I'm really starting to believe it. And everyone says it every year. It sure looks like next year's draft's a lot better than this year's draft. So if you are the Titans, okay, Pittsburgh, you want to come to 1 or 2? Give me 20. Give me next year's first. Give me 3 other things, and I'm going to draft the Ohio State wide receiver next year to pair with Ward. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah, like, I'll take some things in the first round this year, and be happy with the depth. But I'm really going to put things around Ward next draft and look out.
And then you'll also be drafting from a position of strength in the following draft. That if Ward becomes a star, now people are coming knocking again for a quarterback from you, right? And you
You got multiple firsts, and
And here's the thing from the other side of it, and because look, and you could have a team jumping up from 3 to jump the Raiders to get a quarterback. You could have the Browns. You could have, and there's so many teams with extra draft picks too, which adds to it. The more teams that have extra picks, the more likely they are to essentially trade some of those extra picks to go get something. So you have all those teams, and the Jets and the Browns and the Raiders, and so many teams that could potentially draft the quarterback that would want to move up to jump those other teams, or potentially other teams behind them to jump in front of them. But the interesting thing from just looking at the Steelers' perspective, or a team like that's in the middle of the first round potentially, you are likely not going to be in position to draft the quarterback the next year either. So that's why you might see an opportunity where, well, this year you can actually go get it. If Arch Manning goes crazy, that team is trading out of number 1 next year to let you go get a quarterback.
There might be 5 to pick from, but they're better 5.
Yeah, so you might not have this opportunity to go up a lot if you're the Steelers, who are always going to be good and never going to be drafting in the top 5. You're never going to have the opportunity to get a top 5 quarterback, and this might be one of the few years you actually have the opportunity to go get that. And is the next Jared Goff the right move to make for you if that's what Fernando Mendoza is? And we're kind of drawing some loose comps here. But it feels like that's sort of a draft, and there could be some movement. And if you love the guy, go get him. And those trades might be available at 1 or 2 in this class.
Yeah. And 2 things I want to mention is, I know Arizona is not close to like where the Steelers are at, and they only have 3 wins. But I could see them putting a package together if they end up with the 9th pick to get to 1.
A really good one. Yeah. A team going up more than 2 or 3 spots is what we're talking about here.
They win 2 more games the rest of the year, another game the rest of the year, and they're picking 8th to 10. Maybe they make the Bryce Young move to go from 10 to 1, which I'd be thrilled if I'm Tennessee or the Giants.
Yeah. And we talked about this a couple of days ago. There's not a lot of paths for the Arizona Cardinals. Maybe that is their path.
Right. They're an interesting one. I mean, they wouldn't have to go as far. Back to the Steelers. I know this sounds stupid, and in a way, it's a terrible way to do business. But the draft is here in Pittsburgh this year. And I know that sounds dumb, but there's a clock down in downtown Pittsburgh right now by the stadium, counting down by the second for when the draft gets here. And there's going to be millions of people. Now, that doesn't mean you go take a quarterback you don't like. But the timing's pretty good if you wanted to go all in on Mendoza, and every eye's on your city. Like that, owners care about that stuff. We shouldn't, but owners care about that stuff.
Are you shocked that they are taking the draft clock down from 10 minutes to 8 minutes in the first round?
Yeah.
I didn't see
I didn't think that was a problem.
I didn't think it was a problem either. It was
15
minutes. Yeah, exactly. And they went down to 10. And I didn't hear people complaining about it. Maybe the networks want other content, but man, I can't imagine the NFL saying we want fewer commercialable times. We want less time to sell
time on the clock. I was shocked by that too, because I do think that time's valuable for trades. I mean, I bet GMs don't love it.
Yeah, but then there's also a caveat where they're going to allow you 2 extra minutes anyways to get you back to 10 if you need it. So what are we really changing?
Oh, I didn't know that.
That was
what are we even doing?
Yeah.
For someone that's on the air, though, for every draft pick, I'm the only one in Pittsburgh that gets that honor. I was pretty happy about it. By Sunday, you're kind of losing your mind a little bit. But by day three, you're losing your mind.
How about let's shorten the day 3 picks to like 2 minutes and leave the first rounder at 15. Like let's draw out the fun part.
The BP, there's been times where the Steelers don't have like a 5th or 6th round pick, and you've got to go like 8 hours looking forward to that 7th rounder that isn't going to make
the worst if in the live draft situation is that day 3 and then they finally pick the guy and you're like, I didn't watch Alcorn State. I don't know who this guy is. So
that's happened to me too. Yeah.
You wait 2 hours, you get a draft pick, and you don't even know the prospect.
Right. Thank God for the beast.
Exactly.
Right.
All right. We got more. Who are the playoff pretenders this January? And what about Justin Herbert for MVP and more in the NFL 6-pack mailbag next? Today's episode of NFL 6-pack is brought to you by Prize Picks. Holiday season, it's one of the best times for sports, man. We're talking about the playoff pushes in the NFL, bowl games, big basketball matchups. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. You just go to the Prize Picks app. You see, oh man, this many yards for this player. I'm going more on that all day long. It's simple, fast, available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Early payout feature as well is a great bonus. When your lineup starts strong, if you want to, you get the option to cash out early. And how about stacking players? You can choose the same player up to 3 times in one lineup for different statistics, say QBs, passing yards, touchdowns, and rushing yards. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Who are the playoff pretenders, Matt? Scott wants to know what team is currently in the playoff conversation that is the biggest pretender in the pool.
So I got 6 names that are at least worth discussing. NFC South champion is the most glaring one to me.
Yeah.
However, if Tampa plays their best football these last 3 weeks, we've seen them win playoff games lately, so you're never going to sell me on Carolina.
Yeah, Carolina is the worst team that we're talking about. And there's better teams that aren't going to make the playoffs if Carolina makes the playoffs, period.
Yes.
I don't think they're that good. I think Tampa is better, has a higher ceiling, but they've been playing just as bad recently too. So maybe, we should forget our priors and treat the Bucs as they currently are, which is not that good, but they were looking awesome earlier on in the year. We were talking about Baker Mayfield for MVP halfway through the season.
The other obvious one to me is the Steelers. We see it every year. Trust me, I have to deal with this every day of my life. Oh, they'll get in the playoffs. They'll get blown out in round 1 like they do every year. Well, they could get in the playoffs and get blown, and Josh Allen could come to town and rip you apart. I mean, that could absolutely happen.
You're definitely talking about the 4 teams that could potentially come out of the NFC South or the AFC North, because I think you'd have to put the Ravens in that as well.
I say, do you think the Ravens are a pretender, though?
I mean, if you have a healthy, and look, we saw Lamar Jackson start to scoot a little bit more.
He's looking better.
But they've got other problems too. It's
Both
not
lines
really
are
a
bad.
Lamar Jackson problem in Baltimore.
So the other names, and I'm reaching a little bit, the Chargers. I mean, I mentioned yesterday that the Browns have the worst pressure rate allowed in the league. Well, the Chargers are nipping on their heels. I mean, I heard something today that on third downs, Josh Allen was under pressure against the Chiefs on 90% of his dropbacks. I mean, like, that might just be unattainable when you get to playoff level football.
Constant pressure that you are living a life of pressure at that point.
Yes. So that one to me is a possibility. Are your Niners
it's a fair question.
It's a fair question.
The 49ers are in such an insane spot. The 49ers might be a team that they have the toughest schedule in the NFL, or one of the toughest schedules the last 3 weeks. With the Daniel Jones injury, the Colts isn't quite as difficult on Monday Night Football coming up. But you've got the Colts on Monday Night Football, then you've got a short rest Chicago Bears, and then you've got the Seattle Seahawks. And depending on what happens Thursday, we're going to preview that Thursday Seahawks-Rams game here in a second, so we'll talk more about that. But depending on what happens Thursday and what happens the last 3 games for the 49ers, they could lose all 3 games, and the Lions end up in the playoffs and the 49ers are out, right?
Okay.
They could win all 3 games, and the Seahawks beat the Rams, and the 49ers would not only win the West, but be the 1 seed in the NFC. So, and they could also just go make the playoffs as a wild card team and be one and done. And so
I just don't know how good they are.
The 49ers are anything and everything you can imagine them to be right now. It's pretty crazy. The way I've put it on Locked On 49ers to 49ers fans is, and it's a fair question to ask if they are a pretender because of how injured they've been.
Yeah. I mean, we know they're going to the postseason. I mean,
they're going to go to the playoffs. They just have to win a game essentially, or some other teams have to lose. The Lions, if the Lions lose, and if the Lions and the Niners tie, the Niners still go in. So the Niners are pretty much there, but there is a scenario where disaster strikes. But
do they have great players now?
The 49, if you just look at the other teams in the NFC, the 49ers could beat any of those teams. And they've already beaten the Rams and the Seahawks, who might be 1 and 2 in the power rankings. But they can also lose to any of those teams really easily. And they've already lost pretty easily to the Rams and the Buccaneers when they were playing better football. So the 49ers could beat any of those teams. They could lose any of those teams. The question becomes, can you see them running the table in the playoffs and going to win a Super Bowl? I just can't see it. I think
I don't think the defense is good enough. I don't think the star power is good enough. I don't think,
when they've played the Rams, when they've played the Bucks, when they've played the Texans, and their schedule has been pretty easy otherwise, they've looked pretty bad in a lot of, they have looked like they're just not as talented as those teams because of all the players they have lost. So I think they are somewhat pretender as far as, can this team actually win the Super Bowl? It's hard for me to envision them going and run the table.
So I used to put a spreadsheet together for ESPN for 10 years or whatever of when the playoffs came around. We'd take 14 teams, rank the quarterbacks 1 to 14, the running backs 1 to 14, the O-line, the head coach. Other than running back and head coach, where would the Niners definitely be in the top 5?
Well, right now,
compared to playoff teams,
the 49ers offense is number 3 in the NFL in EPA right now.
That doesn't shock me, but that's kind of Shanahan. And
defense is a little bit light on talent. 2 all-pro players in Fred Warner and Nick Bosa are lost. That's the way it's going to be. But they're well coached, and sort of, you know what, that kind of leads us to the next question, because one of the questions is,
I got 2 more teams though on my pretender list.
Oh, do you have more pretenders? Okay,
yeah, but they're kind of the same.
Hit me with pretenders, and then we'll get into this conversation as well.
I've compared these teams now for about a month. The Jags and the Bears. New coach, first overall quarterback. Teams have not won in a very long time. Its fan bases should be thrilled, but is next year the year that they're not a pretender? In terms of playoff teams. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Even the Patriots are
Patriots in the same boat. Yes.
I think they've played good enough to where I don't think any of the teams you mentioned should be considered pretenders right now.
Mm-hmm. But they deserve to be there. I just don't know if they can win 3 games.
I can see the Bears and the Pats being a lot better next year. And then we're like, whoa, watch out for that team. And this year, maybe they end up being one and done in the playoffs.
Boy, that playoff experience went a long way. And now we're going to go to Philly and win, And
you're hungry. You fill those last 2 spots. Your quarterback continues to grow. Your team continues to grow together. Second year under the coach. And then you're a
look out. Right.
Yeah.
So those three teams are all sort of similar. All right.
I'd say my list is just the 4 teams in the North and the South. NFC South, AFC North.
Yeah. They'll at least host the game, but then they're going to go.
Jags too. Yeah. I kind of have a hard time believing in the Jaguars, but at the same time, I think you can poke holes in any team. So, you know, when you're the Bears, the Jaguars, whatever, you got just as good a shot as anybody, because the Denver Broncos are coasting right now. I don't think they're that good as what their record says they are.
And I hate to say it, but the Parsons injury certainly knocks the Packers' chances down a lot.
Yeah, totally agree. One of the reasons the Chargers are on that list, Matt, is because of the injuries on the offensive line. You talked about Herbert pressure. Well, should we be talking about Justin Herbert as MVP for what he's been able to do in that environment next? So where I was getting at in the last segment, Matt, with the 49ers conversation, and it's similar with Justin Herbert, is if I had a vote right now, it might be for Kyle Shanahan for Coach of the Year because of what they're able to get out of. And if not Shanahan Coach of the Year, maybe Assistant Coach of the Year in Robert Saleh for what he's been able to do and where the 49ers are despite the injury and the position that they're in. And I think the same argument could be made, and I think that's what Michael's talking about here in this question. Why are we not talking about Justin Herbert for MVP of the NFL with what he's been able to do with less? Because I think that gets lost in the conversation. You just go look, who had the most yards? Yay, MVP. Who had the most wins? Coach, you get Coach of the Year. I think we're doing it wrong if that's the way we go about it this year.
I think it's a really interesting conversation and a great question, to be honest with you, because MVP can look at a lot of different ways. Who's like the best player on the best team? And Stafford. Okay, great. He had a great year. Yeah. He deserved it. Mahomes every year, or Lamar or Allen last year. And I have no problem with those guys. They're awesome. And you know, but I remember, this is really dating myself, but I remember there was one year Cal Ripken was like the best player in baseball. It was in the 80s, but the Orioles were terrible. And this was a discussion, like, he's the best player in the league. Well, but he can't be the MVP because they're not even 500 or whatever. Now, the Chargers aren't the same situation, but there's been many times in NFL history where you can be like, this guy's awesome, but his team's bad. Like maybe Dak. I mean, if Dak were 10% better this year or something like that.
Dak is another one.
Dak's another one, right?
Yeah.
But in Herbert's case, I really believe that if you put an average NFL starting quarterback there, that's like a 4-win team. And I'm not even, I mean, I'm not talking about like Tua or somebody's getting benched. I'm talking about the 15th best quarter. Yeah. The 16th, Baker Mayfield, or, you know, whoever.
Had a disaster quarterback.
They might get first pick
in the draft.
Yeah. I mean, I think what they're trying to deal with there is almost unattainable because you have to block people in this league and they don't block anybody. So I think it's an interesting conversation. We all know he wouldn't win it. But if I had a vote, he might be my 4th pick. You know, like if he said, give me your top 5.
Yeah. And I would say it's not 100% Herbert. I think Harbaugh deserves
Harbaugh gets some
kudos as well there. But just seeing specifically the situation that Herbert's been put in and what they're doing there is pretty impressive. So he deserves to be in the conversation. I agree.
I think he's had one of the most impressive seasons of any football player in the NFL this year. Impressive.
It's hard to argue with that.
Yeah.
Been phenomenal, even though the stats might not be there for him in the end. What about Phillip Rivers? Love seeing him winning, you know, doing it for the old guys out there. Rivers versus Russ as far as Hall of Fame voting goes, Matt. What do you think about the idea that that Russell Wilson decides to retire this offseason? In 5 years, Rivers and Wilson, who gets your first Hall of Fame vote? This is a question from a different Michael.
For me, it's easy Rivers, but I've been a Rivers supporter for the Hall of Fame where I think most people are kind of on the fence. I think he's well ahead of Eli, behind Ben in that class, but still, I think he's a Hall of Famer. Check, yes. Wilson, to me, although I remember the day that the Broncos traded for him. I remember this distinctly. Somebody I was on the air with said, is he a Hall of Famer now? Because at that point, we thought he was a good player. You know, I mean, that he would finish his career strong with Denver. They gave up a ton for him. And I said, yes, if he bombs out in Denver and never plays again, yes, I think he's a Hall of Famer. But that's been like 4 years ago of well below average quarterback play that has not helped his cause at all. I would rather have Rivers. I think Rivers has the better career. But that's not how it works. I mean, right. A good friend of mine, Dale Lawley, got Troy Polamalu in. So he sat in that room and did the lobbying for them. And that's a different world. You know, you're laying out the resumes, and Wilson's resume is pretty good. I mean, he has a ring. Rivers doesn't. You know, I mean, let's not forget where he was.
That's the big one. And one of the reasons I don't like the Hall of Fame is because you just start looking at categories. You're like, okay, did he check this box? Okay, he gets
right.
It. I hate that.
I think Wilson checks more boxes.
And, you know, if you listen to the show, you know, I'm a small hall guy. They're both out for me.
I get that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a small hall guy, because they're not no-brainer slam dunks. You wake up in the morning every day and like, that's obviously a Hall of Famer. You know,
cool. You want a ring. Jimmy Garoppolo has more rings than Russell Wilson. Is he a Hall of Famer now? Right.
Nah.
He wasn't a starter, obviously, but like we're just counting stuff, and that's not good enough. He's been too bad for too long. You're not a Hall of Famer. Sorry. You won a Super Bowl. Good job. You know what you get for winning a Super Bowl? You get the ring. You don't get the Hall of Fame on top of it.
And the monster contract, and you got plenty.
Right. Really good, but we're gonna the conversation about quarterbacks is skewed now, and probably helps him. To be honest with you, he's got a stronger case today than he had a week ago, right? Because
I guess
he didn't do anything to hurt himself, and he also gets to bypass the Manning, Brady, Breeze Hall of Fame classes and skip.
And we're talking about him
before his class starts. And man, how about this? What about Rivers takes a run to the Super Bowl right now with
that'd be great.
The Indianapolis Colts, and then you can lock yourself into a Hall of Fame.
Yeah, if he even gets them to the playoffs.
If Rivers wins one playoff game with the Colts, if he gets them into the playoffs,
gets them in.
That's one of the best things he's done in his entire career.
Yeah, especially when you just look at it on paper like a resume. I mean, and that's kind of how it ends up working, you know.
And it'll be like, you know, a 10-year gap between, oh yeah, Rivers did that really cool thing in 2025. Oh yeah, Russell Wilson won a Super Bowl in 2013. It'll be so long ago for voters to even remember when Russell Wilson was good when he was at his pinnacle. He was young in his career.
All very true.
Yeah,
but they're kind of neck and neck.
Is this the Buffalo Bills' best shot at a Super Bowl? Joey Bag of Donuts. Is this now or never for the Buffalo Bills with potentially no Mahomes, Burrow, or Lamar in the playoffs?
I'm not going to say now or never, because Allen's not going away, and maybe he's only getting better in his career, which is bonkers. But it might be their best shot. Yeah, I mean, you got to love not having Burrow and Lamar, or Burrow and especially Mahomes, and
no cheese.
Maybe Lamar. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the team around him is as good as it has been the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's funny because I think it is the best shot, even though it's not his best team.
Yeah. I will say yes, but I'm going to use the words now or never. Like if he gets eliminated in the second round, I'm not going to be like Josh Allen will never get a ring.
So on the next episode, we're going to make our 6-pack of picks. There's some really good games. We talked about 49ers Colts. There is Patriots Ravens. There is Steelers Lions. There is Jaguars Broncos. There is Saturday football, the Packers and the Bears. It's going to be a lot of fun this week with playoff with playoff implications, but it's going to start on Thursday with the Seahawks and the Rams. 2 11-win football teams, Matt. The Seahawks hosting the Rams. Thursday night football. Seattle at home is favored by 1.5 points. This isn't part of our picks, but this is a game we got to talk about here because we're not going to get another chance, because when we reconvene on Friday, this game will have been played. And I think the football world, if you're not a Rams fan, you should root for the Seahawks, because that's the chaos of potentially this insane season ending in a 3-way tie at the top of the West, and everybody having an opportunity to go get that 1 seed. If the Rams win this, it starts to get a little bit less exciting at the top of the NFC playoff power structure. But man, if the Seahawks win, this could get a lot of fun around the NFL. Because again, remember, there's Niners Seahawks in week 18. That could get flexed to Sunday Night Football. You might be talking about playing for the West and the 1 seed for those teams.
So a couple notes. I don't think Devontae Adams is going to play.
Yeah. Puka's banged up as well.
Yeah.
So short week.
Coming off a monster game.
Yeah.
I don't think Seattle's nearly as hard a place to play as people think, or that the reputation implies. They're frankly better on the road, which is kind of a compliment to them because they're so good on the road. And I do think Seattle's offense is showing some chinks, that I don't think they're as well-rounded as the Rams. So I love the coaching hire for Seattle, but I'm definitely giving coach and quarterback nod to the Rams. I think they're the more well-rounded team. And I'll be frank, I don't care where the Rams play. If you're going to give me points right now to that football team, I'm taking them.
I think the way I see this game going is a surprisingly lower scoring game, especially in the first half. I think it could play out in a way that helps the Seahawks and their defense. But then all of a sudden the floodgates start to open a little bit. And all of a sudden it's like boom, 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 score in like third, fourth quarter. And you might actually end up a game that goes over the 43.5 and ends in spectacular fashion. That's the way I view this. Start early, end spectacularly, and potentially that could end in both these quarterbacks could, throw a bunch of picks as well. And so that's I expect a really fun football game. That might start out a little bit of a grind, a little bit of a feel it out, and then we have fun in the second half. That's what I'm looking for with Seahawks and Rams, and I'll be rooting for the Seahawks because I think I'd just be rooting for chaos in that.
You always like chaos, yeah.
The Rams is going to be a little bit too clean if they win this game for their path to sitting at home and having to buy in week 1 of the playoffs.
I'm definitely taking points if we're picking it like that.
Love it. Tomorrow, we're making our 6-pack of picks for Week 16. Tons of great football games. And thanks for everybody who got your questions in. Apologies to the questions we did not get to. Check out the Everydayer Club in the show notes. You can go to NFL6pack.supercast.com to learn more. And Matt and I back tomorrow right here, the NFL 6-pack.